Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared, and in this video I want to talk more about dreams. I did a live stream yesterday. Obviously not everybody was able to attend, which is usually the case. And I don't know how many of you end up watching my live streams after the fact. This one was on the shorter side for a live stream. It was an hour long. Typically they go for more than an hour. But if you're interested, you might want to go check that. Go to the homepage of my channel, and then you'll see it there. I have my live streams as one of the featured items on the front page of my channel. And you can also just, there's like tabs at the top where you can look at, the community tab and live streams and playlists, and so you can find it that way too, in case you miss a live stream. But yesterday we were talking about dreams, and this morning I just barely woke up and I just had some realizations and things that I wanted to share, bounce it off of you, see what you guys think. So before we do that, just like always, I want to give you an update on the Flood the Earth challenge, where we share the Book of Mormon. So this is the update from yesterday, since right now this is first thing in the morning when I'm making this video. 5,786 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. We have 2 more people that have joined the challenge, bringing it to 567 participants. Please, everyone that's listening, please consider joining. 567 is really low compared to the number of people that watch my channel, which is fine, but please consider, please. And most importantly, another baptism, and then a missionary contact along with it, but it's the same person. The person that reported this hadn't reported the share of the Book of Mormon ahead of time or the contact with missionaries, but kind of just like did it all at once. And so now we're at 17 baptisms, which is just amazing. And every day that goes by, this whole thing just like blows my mind. Frankly, I wish I was having my own success, but I'm glad that some of you are. And I guess it doesn't really matter. It's not about credit or anything like that. Although I would like to experience myself. What's important that we're doing this together, and that someone has taken their first step and gotten on to the covenant path. So good job. Okay, so a few things. I want to talk about a realization that I had about dreams and the temple and parables. I want to talk about recording dreams. So let's just begin like this. Last night, I had another, like very at the beginning of the night, kind of like a very short, just a segment of a dream. And I woke up and I was thinking about it, and because it was short and simple, I was like, and it's funny because this is the second night in a row. It's the second night in a row, and the subject matter has been the same. And both nights I didn't record it when I woke up. I'm sure that you've had this experience too. If you've ever tried to remember or record your dreams, you wake up in the middle of the night, a dream impresses you. You don't write it down right away because you think that it's easy enough to remember, but that's not typically the case, or at least it's not for me. So I realized that one thing that I need to do is, I have the phone next to my bed. There's not really any excuse. I think sometimes I'm just like, I'm tired, or like, I just want to go back to sleep. It's okay. Just laziness, essentially, and giving in to sleepiness. But I would want to press upon you, if you're kind of like joining me in this journey of recording dreams, do it. It sucks, but if it's like in the middle of the night, get up and do it. That's going to be a personal decision on your side. But if you watched my video recently about President Nelson and how he's received a lot of revelation for the church at nighttime, there's something to that. And I think it really is significant. I really do. And I'm about to explain why, because that kind of like gets into what I was saying before about parables, the temple, in dreams. So in this process, um, both Jenica and I have both recorded our dreams, and we'll go on drives like we typically do. We like to drive, go do errands, but talk about our lives and, just get really in sync with each other, share everything. And we've been talking about our dreams, and it's been really amazing. Now, okay, let me back up. Before we started recording our dreams, Jenica was always better at having like long dreams and much better at remembering them. So much so that it like has shocked me like how detailed her dreams seem to be compared to mine, or at least how much recall she has of her dreams down to very minute details. And so before we started recording our dreams together, she had a number of dreams, and I think I brought this up on the channel, um, especially within like the last maybe like year, and especially since the October 2022 General Conference, where President Nelson said that we would have more blessings, miracles, and privileges as members of the church. And I think that this is one of them. So anyway, before recording our dreams, we would talk about them together and interpret them. And it's always been amazing to me how there's not like anything really that's arbitrary in these dreams. Like we'll go into the details, and encoded in the small details there's like meaning. So now recording the dreams, um I'm having more dreams of my own that I'm actually going over that are now longer. Again, I don't know if that's because of the change in medication or simply because I'm paying more attention to my dreams. But now my dreams are longer, more detailed, and I go through those details and we do it together. And I know that the details are significant because they fit into the rest of the dream in the interpretation of the dream. Um, what on the surface may seem like an arbitrary detail, something that doesn't matter, when you're going through, thing by thing and you're interpreting it, the details actually fit in and are actually necessary. And sometimes what seems like a small detail is actually the keystone to the dream, or like a really significant concept. So, um, you know, okay, there's so much I want to say. So all this made me think about the temple, because the dreams are pretty symbolic. In fact, they're probably like mostly symbolic. There may be some times when you have a dream where the meaning is kind of like easy to understand. It's on the surface, but I've been impressed by how the symbolic nature of dreaming. When I did that first video about dreams, I asked why is it that you think that it is that the Lord will communicate in dreams rather than just like in your waking life, like, or why is that such a rich time to receive personal revelation opposed to when you're awake? Maybe you're like going for a hike, you're in a secluded place, and that is somewhere where you can receive revelation. You can receive revelation anywhere, but what there seems like nighttime in dreaming seems to stand apart. It seems to be a category of its own. Why? Well, I asked that question in the video. One person responded, it's probably because of there's not very many distractions. And I think that that's that is partially true. Because when you're dreaming, it's like you're in your own head. There's no outside distractions. So I think that that is true. But I've come to realize this morning, I think it actually has more to do with the symbolic aspects of dreaming, because symbolism is a way of encoding complex ideas and principles into a simple thing. And symbols can have multiple layers, different depths. On one layer, there's like an easier meaning and understanding, but then there's a next layer and potentially deeper layers. And that's something that we know about. That's like a concept when it comes to parables, why the Savior taught in parables. It's because parables can teach multiple things in just one story. So it's like a compression of information. So on the surface level, just anyone can understand it. There's not really much interpretation. So for example, one famous parable is the Good Samaritan. There was a really good article in the Ensign a long time ago. I don't remember when, but it was talking about how, like, on the surface, like, you see, oh yeah, we need to, not be like the Pharisees or like the priests at the time of Christ and be prideful. We need to, stop and help people. That's like the top level, the obvious level. But the deeper level is that there's like a lot more meaning to that parable. So for example, in the deeper interpretation of it, it's not that the Pharisee, the priest, the whoever didn't want to help the injured man. It's that they couldn't. Okay, because on the symbolic level, only Christ is the one that can perform the atonement and help you. And the Good Samaritan is he's a symbol of Christ. He takes the injured man to the hotel, which is like the church, and the innkeeper, which is like the senior apostle. And Christ doesn't stay physically at the church, but he puts people in charge of the church, and he guides and directs them. And the man in the parable, this Good Samaritan, gave the innkeeper instructions, take care of him until he's well, and he pays for it, his stay and stuff like that. So that's like a key reason why the Lord spoke in parables, because they're layered. On one level, they're easy to understand for everybody on the surface level. And then for those that have eyes to see, or maybe you're a little bit further along in your spiritual progression, you can see the deeper layers. And not only that, but parables are easy. They're easy to remember. If Christ were to give like an essay about what he was trying to convey with the parable of the Good Samaritan, like, we're not robots. We don't have, an internal memory that works the same as a hard drive. So he's not just going to give like a scientific detailed explanation of something. It doesn't have to be that way. And because we're not robots, we're able to think of things in the abstract. And so it's a very effective way of communication. It's very effective. It's easy to remember for the human brain when you tell a parable. And likewise, I think that's why in dreams, it's essentially the same thing. A dream is a parable. It's an allegory. There's a story, there's a narrative, and it's easy to remember a story, and then you can look at the individual elements and then start to unravel what's being revealed to you. So, and the same thing holds true in the temple, if you think about it. The temple specifically, okay, well, the entire temple experience, because even, when you're doing baptisms for the dead, there's a lot of symbolism there. The baptismal font itself on top of the 12 oxen and other things. What a baptismal font is. It's a womb. It's a birthing place. It's a place where people are born. So symbolism. But definitely in classically in the endowment, the endowment is very heavy laden in symbolism. And I think it's the same concept, obviously. The same way that the Savior taught in parables, which has encoded information, encoded for when you're like ready to understand it. That's kind of the interesting thing about it. There's like a mechanism within a parable where the information is there, it's safe and sound, but once you personally progress to a certain point, only then are you able to unlock uh, the more hidden meaning, or the deeper, not well, yeah, hidden meaning or deeper truths of that parable. So the temple is essentially the same thing. It's an allegory. It's done in narrative form, and essentially what it is it's a movie. The way that it's presented, it's like a movie. Um, you do participate, interestingly, so it's not strictly a movie where you just watch. There's things that you actually do, things that you perform, and then there's a test of knowledge at the end, right? And you physically move around, so it's kind of a little bit more, um maybe, I don't know how you would say it, but maybe a little bit more advanced than just simply a parable, because in the case of the temple, you're actually physically acting it out. Which brings a whole nother element to the understanding of what you're doing when you're actually participating in the allegory or the parable. So, and I've thought for a long time, it's interesting that the endowment is presented nowadays is in movie format, whereas in olden times and pioneer days, there were actors because we didn't have the technology yet. But once the technology came along, it was able to be put in movie format, which preserved and no, okay, so in movie format, it's going to be the exact same thing every single time. You don't get distracted by the actors and them trying to recall, lines that they're supposed to deliver, or you're not distracted by certain things, and it makes it very consistent. So you're not distracted by things that don't matter, and you focus on the meat of what's being presented. So the fact that it's kind of like a movie, um, I've always thought that it's interesting that in the world you have actual movies for entertainment. And it's not any secret that Hollywood, the powers that be, I think they realize the power of parables, allegories, symbolism, and they have their own thing that they're trying to implant into your mind. Because um, the way that our brains work, we make meaning of things. You know, it's like we're naturally wired to think in this way, in terms of stories and allegories and metaphors and symbols. And so, because that's the way that our brains kind of work, on a subconscious level and somewhat a conscious level as well, I think that they're taking advantage of that because they know that certain uh, themes and motifs and stuff that they put in movies, it will stick in your head because it's hard to forget. They can take a movie and take a certain scene and really kind of like make it dramatic, make it unforgettable. And if it's unforgettable, then it sticks in your mind. And whatever they've put, however they structured that parable or allegory or symbol, also stays in your mind. And maybe very subtly in the background, you start to like adopt that idea because they're the ones that dictate how the movie goes. They are the writers and the directors. So if they have a certain thing that they're trying to sneakily put into your mind, they can do that. And maybe it'll take hold, maybe it won't. But I'm sure that they try their darnest to create narratives that will stick in your mind. So, so anyway, you see where I'm going with this when it comes to dreams. Essentially, when you dream, it's like you're receiving your own personal allegories and symbols, you know, uh, in even more than the temple. Not saying that the temple is less than dreams, but even more in the temple, when you're in a dream, uh, you're well, no, I guess at some points you do feel kind of just like a observer. And we were talking about that yesterday. The idea of becoming lucid in your dreams, which means that you are aware as you're sleeping that you are dreaming, and because of that awareness, you consciously obtain some level of control of your actions in the dream, as well as the content of the dream, depending on the level of lucidity that you achieve. So, um, so it's interesting, like how like the temple you participate certain parts. It's kind of like the same thing in the dream, especially if you become lucid. And I think it's for this reason that the Lord uses dreams, because essentially they're personal parables. They're personalized parables to you, and in allegories. So when you have a dream, I really think you shouldn't write it off, no matter how silly it may sound. Okay, because it, it probably has to be with certain messages, like and like I said, with the movie directors and writers, if they are trying to put something in your head, probably their best shot at doing that is to create a scene in the movie that just really stands out. Um, let me expand on that just for a second. Okay, so there is this what's it called? I'm gonna have to look it up really quick. Is it pneumatic? No, not pneumatic. That's like air. Pneumatic device. Mnemonic. Maybe it's mnemonic device. Give me just 1 second. Yeah, or uh mnemonic. So it's MN are the first two letters. I think it's mnemonic. Mnemonics are memory devices that help learners recall larger pieces of information. So, um, let me look for one more thing. Was it David O'Brien? Memory book. Yeah, it's David O'Brien. Okay, so when I lived in Arizona, and this is the book right here. Isn't okay, I'm going to put this on the screen. Um I want to say it was this book right here, this first one. You can get this on Amazon for $16.95. This is not a paid promotion. Yeah, this is the one that I read. It's called "You Can Have an Amazing Memory." Oh, by Dominic OBrien. Shows how much that helped me to have an amazing memory. Right? Just kidding. Let's see. Dominic OBrien. You can have an amazing memory. Yeah, that's definitely the one. Okay, so Dominic OBrien or O'Brien, I don't know. He when he was young, he was amazed by this guy on TV that was able to memorize an entire deck of cards. I can't remember all the details, but essentially he was blown away and he wanted to do the same thing. And he ended up becoming kind of like a pioneer in these mnemonic devices, ways to memorize things, complicated things, or long lists of things. And he didn't necessarily invent he just kind of like developed some techniques based on things that were already known all the way back to the Greeks and probably beyond. The Greeks realized that there's a way that you could essentially encode information and have it in your mind so that you can easily recall it later as you're giving like a speech, for example. You know, you're at a forum or you're a philosopher and you're delivering a speech or a discourse of some kind. It's called a memory palace. I'm not going to go through all the techniques here. You can look it up yourself. I'll put the links in the description below for Dominic OBrien. You can just look on YouTube. You know, there's places you can go on YouTube that show you the ways that he realized that he could just really master memorization. But the one thing I wanted to pull out of that is so I was in Arizona. We were living with Jenica's grandparents as we were preparing to launch into my new career as an aircraft dispatcher. We wanted to save some money. We moved down there, and her grandpa had this book, and I don't know, somehow it made its way to me, and he said it was okay if I read it, and so I did. And it is a powerful, powerful way to memorize things. It's very, very useful for long lists of things. We have an autistic nephew that at the time lived in Vegas. This is on Jenica's side of the family, and he was really into pi. 3.141592, so on. A number that, as far as anybody knows, goes on forever. And I thought with this new ability, it would be cool to memorize as many digits of pi as I could. And I got up to beyond 1,000. I'm not kidding you. I have the book here somewhere, like the little like notebook where I wrote it all down, like all the digits of pi that I had memorized. It's a very powerful method of memorizing things. So as you learn this technique of David O'Brien or O'Brien, he talks about how when you're trying to remember something, as you're going from one item in the list to another, you have to, in your mind, try and connect them in very abstract ways and very, you want to try and make it as like outlandish as you possibly can, like weird, bizarre, because when you do that, it sticks in your mind better. Your mind is like, what? And so because it can't really resolve the strangeness of that thing that you concocted, it just kind of sticks. Whereas if it's more mundane, it's easier to forget. That's kind of just intuitive, right? In life, as we're experiencing life, it's like the weird things that happen that really stick in our minds, but things that are more mundane just kind of like slip away from us. So this is a long way of saying that as you're dreaming, if you have silly dreams that seem like they're just irrational and stupid and random, you may want to rethink that, because what may actually be happening is the Lord is giving you a way to easily remember an important concept, and maybe the most important concept of that dream. And hence, it's very silly in nature to someone that's awake and thinking rationally, but to underline and underscore the concept of that part of your dream, it may be made intentionally bizarre, strange, emotional, silly, whatever the case may be. So I wouldn't discount any of the dreams that you have because you think they're silly, because this is like a different language that's being spoken. So for all these reasons that I just said, I think that's why dreams come up a lot in the scriptures, because we're supposed to liken the scriptures to ourselves. We can have many of the same experiences that prophets do, although again, we have to make the distinction, not for the entire church. You're not going to receive revelation for the church or for the world, but the Lord puts those stories in the scriptures for a reason, and dreams are equally as applicable to you in your personal life. So, because dreams show up so much in the scriptures, both prophets have dreams in the scriptures, and so do other people. Like right now, we're going through the book of Daniel, and King Nebuchadnezzar, a wicked person, a worldly person, received dreams that had to do with him and his lost the word, but what he was over, his kingdom. It pertained to, it was under him, under his control. So he received that, and the Lord also wanted to make use of him in his kingdom as a revelation for the world. And so he received these dreams, or the one dream in particular that had to do with the legacy that he would leave behind with these future empires and kingdoms, right? It's almost like, if you think about it, it was very personal, because he was seeing the effects in a way that him and his empire would have into the future. So we can have dreams too, and not only does it come up in the scriptures a lot, but they talk about it from time to time in general conference and other church materials, that we should regard dreams as sacred. And I'm starting to kind of come to the belief that maybe every dream, to varying degrees, are important or relevant to us. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe there are just irrelevant dreams, things that are just purely whatever. But I really hesitate in saying that, because of what I just said about, it may seem silly. The story may seem like, oh, that's really weird, or like some really bad stuff happened in that, stuff that I would be embarrassed to share with people. Some people are embarrassed of certain things in their dreams. But remember, you're not the one that's in control of your dreams. It's not like before you go to bed, you type up a script and then you then play the movie in your head. Science is still trying to understand dreams. It's something that they don't fully understand. They think that it has a lot to do with the subconscious part of your mind. And then there's all sorts of different things that they currently believe about dreams, but ultimately they don't know. But I think that this is one thing in life, just like many other things, that through membership in the church and having the gospel, and being just generally a spiritual person, you don't even have to be a member of the church to realize that dreams, probably most of the time, if not all the time, are spiritual in nature, and they can have practical applications. It's not all just like purely spiritual development. Well, again, it's kind of like the idea that the Lord doesn't give any temporal commandments, that when he says something that seems temporal in nature, meaning having to do with the world and just daily life, it's not really just that. There's a spiritual element behind whatever commandment he's giving. So like the only one that really comes to mind right now, for example, is tithing. That's like has to do with worldly things, money. But there's a spiritual component and backdrop to that commandment. So you've heard all sorts of stories where people, members of the church or not, receive dreams, and then it has an actual practical application in real life, and I'm sure that with every time that happens, there's also a spiritual aspect to it. And the Lord gives that person that dream to bless them and then bless the lives of those around them. So, if you're a more rational person, you may, like, if you lean really that way, you might want to try and work to balance that out, because there is value and benefit in abstract thinking. It has to be both together, rational, abstract together. That's the way that our brains are literally designed. There's two hemispheres. One side, if I remember right, the left side is the one that's more rational. It has to do with logic and mathematic skills and things like that. Whereas the right hemisphere of the brain is more abstract and artistic. And you were given both. You weren't just given one half of a brain, even though some of you act like you only have half a brain. That's just a joke, kind of, but mostly a joke. So we should avoid extremes like that, like only being rational, only being practical. And reverse, you should not only be abstract and divorce yourself from reality. These two things are meant to go together. So what I'm saying is that if you have an imbalance and you're aware of it, then work to balance it out, and stop thinking that everything is silly. Don't be so secular. Or again, if you're the opposite, don't do that either. Come to the straight and narrow path. There's good and there's evil. Those are two extremes, but we move away from evil and go toward good. But with all these other things, knowledge, wisdom, rationality, abstract, hard, soft, hot, cold, whatever, that's where you typically want to come toward the center and where you have the best effect. And that's why I think Christ, he's the center point. He's the connecting point between, He's the connecting point between justice and mercy. He's the mediator. Those two things have to exist, and we need justice and we need mercy, but they have to communicate and they have to have some kind of interface. And that interface point is Christ. That's the function that he performs. So avoid extremes. Okay. So those are all my thoughts. This actually kind of went longer than I thought. I'm going to be doing an interview with Rabbi Gerfine today, and I don't know why I haven't done this before, but I sent him an email ahead of time asking if I could record our conversation, because I want you guys to hear from him directly, and I think that would be good. So I haven't checked my email because I did it right before I started this video, but I'll check it, and hopefully he's okay with that. I think that he will be, and so you can probably expect that either today or tomorrow. I'll have to feel it out if I want to post it today or tomorrow, but just be on the lookout for that. All right, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.